What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on Rich Paul and some of the statements that Rich Paul has been making lately. Now, first, I want to start with the statement that Rich Paul made when on I guess that's his podcast when he was talking to what's the guy name? Uh, 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 anyway, let me just say this. His name will come to me in a second. Um, Rich Paul on his podcast made the statement that people only bought Michael Jordan's tennis shoes. Well, only drug dealers bought his tennis shoes, right? And I wasn't going to respond to it at first because to me it's just obvious that Rich Paul and the LeBron James camp, in my opinion, they kind of desperate. When you have to come out and say, first of all, that's not even true, right? Um, People bought Michael Jordan tennis shoes back in the day because Michael Jordan, like it was like a status, right? And by Michael Jordan being the most popular basketball player, the most popular athlete, of course, people was going to buy his sneaker, his tennis shoe. But and it wasn't like, like what Rich Paul tried to say, like only the drug dealers, only drug dealers had his tennis shoes. It wasn't like that. Now I know that when I was younger, when I was in high school, that's when Michael Jordan tennis shoes, his sneakers first came out when I was in high school. But no way, and I couldn't afford them then, right? And so my mother, she didn't buy them for me because we couldn't afford Air Jordans, right? But I knew people, um, plenty of people who wasn't drug dealers you know, who had Jordans. So that wasn't true. So that just leads me to believe, like, why would this guy Rich Paul make a statement like that? And in my opinion, I think that Rich Paul and LeBron James, they making all these statements, and everything they say, just about everything they say, just get pushed back, right? People just counter that and they go after it. But it just seems like LeBron James and Rich Paul is trying to rewrite history, and in order to rewrite history, they need more than just to go out here and to make statements for it to be true. There's absolutely no truth in a lot of the statements that Rich Paul is making. So if Rich Paul making statements that don't have any truth in them, then that messes up his credibility. And so when he do try to sprinkle a little bit of truth into whatever statements that he making, and people they're going to disregard that too. And so I just think that once LeBron James retire from basketball, if you see the pushback that LeBron James getting now, just imagine what it's going to be like when he no longer is playing basketball and he's not like under the protection of the NBA. Because I think right now with LeBron James still being in the NBA, it's it's kind of shielding him from number one, mainstream media going at him, I think. And then number two, I think there's, some other stuff about LeBron James may come up later on, and so LeBron James won't be able to have that leverage or that protection that he's enjoying now. We, I don't really see the point of LeBron James and Rich Paul making the statements that, LeBron only people was buying his tennis shoes was drug dealers. That's just crazy. And I heard somebody say, and I also read this too, but I heard another guy on another podcast say that Michael Jordan sneakers, his tennis shoes outsells let me see, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James. Just by himself, he outsold all three of those guys. Right. So Mike is a status symbol. His tennis shoes are. And the reason why his tennis shoes are a status symbol is because Mike put that work in. Mike was dedicated to the sport and he left everything on the floor. That's why That's why Michael Jordan right now don't have to say a word when it comes to defending his legacy, because all you have, like the fans do that because the fans experience that, and Mike put that work in, and he just allowed the fans to, even if Mike thought about defending his legacy, which I don't think he feel like he needs to, and it's just LeBron James because LeBron James is desperate right now, and I don't get it why LeBron James and his and Rich Paul, why they're so desperate. But when they're doing making these type of desperate moves and desperate statements, it just leads me to believe that something else is coming down the line, like something that is really going to something that's coming down the line that's really going to like tarnish his legacy, right? Because it got to be more to it than that for them to risk their credibility going out and saying stuff, making statements that everybody can just push back on. And it's getting so bad that Rich Paul was on the podcast with Fat Joe, and Fat Joe just pushed back directly in his face, right? And he just called him out to his face, which I thought was, I thought that was cool, man, because you just can't, like, I think it's an insult when you come and tell people to their face something that's that they can't prove. Like if you make a statement, if you think that Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and you can't explain why, or you can't articulate like why do you think LeBron James is the GOAT, then it's going to be hard to defend your stance, whether you think it's Michael Jordan or LeBron James. And Rich Paul being LeBron James' guy, I can understand the fact that he's standing up for his guy, right? But at least have some talking points that back up what you're saying. He's saying stuff and he don't have any evidence to prove or no talking points to back up or anything to explain like why you feel that way. When Fat Joe asked Rich Paul was LeBron James better than Michael Jordan, he answered that question by asking him a question. And the question was, what room can that Michael Jordan can go into that LeBron James can't go into? And I'm thinking about that question. I'm like, well, what's your point? Now there are some rooms, in my opinion, that Michael Jordan can go into that LeBron James can't go into. And I think that it basically, I don't think that when it comes to ownership, I don't think that LeBron James will be an owner. So he won't be able to get into that club that Michael Jordan was into, that ownership club. So that's a room right there, right off the top, that he won't be able to get into. I don't know. I think that they just look desperate. That's LeBron James' guy, but I think he's going about this the wrong way. He think that he can rewrite history just because he says, like, once he say it, then it is that's what it is, and it don't work like that. Basketball fans are just too knowledgeable and too intelligent to allow Rich Paul to come out and say, well, LeBron is the GOAT and that's it. Or or drug deal only just because only drug dealers bought Michael Jordan tennis shoes and that's it. He just really don't sound intelligent or articulate at all. He don't sound like somebody who is really a student of the game. He tries to pretend like he's a student of the game. But it's obvious that him or LeBron James is not a student of the game. Or if LeBron James is a student of the game, LeBron James saw what Michael Jordan went through to become like one of the greatest to ever play the game, and he decided to take a shortcut. Now, if I can go with that LeBron James said, "Wow, that type of commitment, that type of sacrifice, that's not something that I'm willing to do. So just let me. I'm gonna take a shortcut. I'm gonna pad my stats. I'm gonna move around from team to team, but I'm not going, like what Mike do. I'm not even going that sacrifice that he made. I'm not even going to do that. And so that was, in my opinion, that was a conscious decision, like LeBron James made early on in his career, not to. He didn't want to work like what Mike worked, and he didn't want to sacrifice like what Mike sacrificed. And I, if he wasn't cut out for that, that's cool. But don't lie to people and say that you earned something and you're trying to get something that you didn't earn, because basketball fans are not going for, they're not buying it. They just not buying it. And like I said, when you on Fat Joe podcast and he pushed back right in your face, man. And you can kind of tell just from listening to Rich Paul that he was kind of he was upset. He kind of got mad a little bit at what Fat Joe did and what Fat Joe said. But it's just, this looks to me like Rich Paul and LeBron James are desperate, and that's why they're going through all these trials and putting out all this information, or he's making these statements that people can just easily debunk and just push back on it right in their face, right in their face. Like I still can't get over. He's going to say, "Well, what rooms can LeBron get into that Mike? What rooms that Mike can get into that LeBron's, you know." And if you give people a little while to think about it, they'll come up with some answers. Just like I said, Mike, uh, was a NBA owner. LeBron James, because of, he won't be able to be a NBA owner. I don't see him being an NBA owner. So that's a room that Mike was in that LeBron James won't be able to get into. So yeah, man, I'm following this situation with LeBron James and his agent and the people in his camp. It just looks to me that a whole lot is going to change for LeBron James once he retire. A whole lot is going to change. And if you look, and that's not me wishing anything bad on, but if you look at anybody who were like player agents and represented players, throughout the history, like those guys, most of the time when their guys fade out, that's when they fade out. Then a new crop of guys come in and they get new agents, new lawyers and stuff like that. So you strike while the iron is hot. Clutch management, I think, is definitely going to take a hit once LeBron James retire. So he won't have clutch management, for much, like years and years after LeBron retire. It won't be like clutch management. It's still going to be there. All of them really going to be doing podcasts after that. So, but that's my take on it. I think things are going to change for LeBron James and his camp once LeBron retire. And it just, he's just trying to prolong the situation. So with that being said, man, y'all make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.